I've known Stephen and Debbie since I would say, middle school. And they have discipled me from then to high school, college, and when I interned for the church, Stephen just poured into me how to be a leader, how to disciple girls, how to pour into them and guide them. Debbie also, we had many fun trips to sleepovers at your house or playing hide and go seek at Walmart, crazy adventures, lots at Camp Kalakwa, lots of fun memories, but most importantly, how you poured spiritual input into my life. Forever grateful for that. And I would say most importantly, how you lead by example in your servant heart. Both of you give so much of your time, and is clearly seen in your kids' lives also. I remember Grantham gave up some of his savings when I was raising money for a missions trip. And if that doesn't show good guidance of a parent of how to lead, I don't know what does. But that your kid want to sacrificially give his own savings, it just really touched my heart. And so I just am so thankful for you guys, and I know God will take you so far. Just thank you. I thought I could hold it together.
Morning. All right, so I remember, 2016, 15, Debbie, you were at a house for a birthday party for Soraya. And our wives were friends, and they kept saying, "You have to meet my husband," respectively to each other. And I'm like, why? All those movie quotes, Star Wars, comic books, Legos, and all that. I kept hearing, "You have to meet Steve." And I'm like, wives do that all the time, and the guys stand in the corner, and they do that. You see the Braves game? I saw the Braves game. Kind of trying to get us to be friends so the families can be friends and grow. Eventually, I did. And Stephen, I remember, maybe it was that very day, you came later in the day, and some conversation along the lines of, "Oh yeah, I heard you like Legos," and I took you up into my office, and there was just this, Any of you guys ever see my office? It looks like Toys R Us. It's just Legos everywhere, comic books in the closet and everything else. And he was going through all the different, "Oh, I want this set, I like that set, I like it." And then Grantham and them came up and everything else. And then we started talking, hanging out, going to your Bible studies, and realized that there's another nerd like me who loves comic books and loves sci-fi, loves building Legos, and mostly loves the Lord. And through this friendship and mentorship, I have come so much closer to the Word. And my family and I, we started coming to Redeemer, and I'm just thankful. I'm thankful, and I'm going to miss you so much. But I'm so grateful that some other comic book geeks and nerds up in Silver are going to get the same treatment. So thank you.
I have the honor of presenting the gift to you from the junior high and high school group. As I researched this and talked to so many people, I was really astounded at how many of them had the same impression of you that I do, which is somebody who's very caring, very outgoing, very helpful, and unfortunately leaving for a cold weather. But we all wanted to get something to help you up there. And so when I think about you, it's kind of like the lamplighters of old. You know, they would go through the city and light the street lights, and they would keep going down the row and lighting them. They couldn't see what was in front of them because it had gotten dark. But if you turned and looked behind them, the whole street was lit up and everything was very beautiful. So very quickly, if you can open up the gift. Yes, right now. I'm sorry, you will have to stand up. This is the lamplighter gift.
This is from junior high? Is it gonna
Junior
explode?
high, it's not going to explode.
Is this the real thing?
Pull the gift out. You will not know unless you pull it out.
I'm looking at an earwax candle kit.
Uh,
Create a candle as unique as yourself.
That's right.
Wax extraction cap included.
And can be used by the whole family.
To be used by the whole family.
That's right.
Shockingly, I do not.
We wanted to make sure, you know, it was unique to you and to your family. You can make them both smooth and
That's really scary.
really what's more important is with Stephen is what's inside. That's right. Before he leaves today, everybody can try on the cap and make a special Redeemer candle. You know, you can do one like at Christmas for that 5th candle lighting, or what's unique about Stephen is what's inside him. It's not the package outside. You know, he's not the whole Georgia fan thing, not the whole. He's got a Mustang that he never gets to drive. There was a Moravian movement, a Moravian Baptist movement, and to show that it was a true turning over and true redemption, they sent out missionaries. Their first 2 missionaries were the Daphne brothers, John and Thomas. I'm sure it's a household name for everybody. In 17, I think it was 53, they left their house in Germany, went to Denmark, tried to get on a boat for the New World, but Denmark was a Catholic country. Everybody hated them. They were forced to work for a pastor there who was a man of faith, and they were forced to work for him for about 12 years before the Queen eventually became a Christian, and then she helped them get onto a Dutch ship and sail for the New World. Turns out God was waiting for them, or wanted them to wait 12 years, because while they were on this trip, it was storm after storm after storm. But these 2 brothers were leading worship services and showing their faith and singing just as loudly as they could. After about the 4th storm, a wave overtook the ship, broke the sail in half, broke the mainsail in half. All the other passengers were scared for their lives. These 2 brothers and their families were leading worship services. One man walked up to them and said, "How can you not be afraid?" And he said, "We have faith." And he said, "But your wives and children must be scared to the death." And he said, "No, they had faith." And this man, who was not a Christian at this time, when he became a Christian a number of years later, and then he started the denomination called the Methodist Church. It was John Wesley. The same thing happened. Dwight L. Moody led a man to Christ, Billy Sunday, and he led this little nobody Baptist preacher in North Carolina to Christ. Billy Graham had been attending a Presbyterian church, never accepted Christ. His friends took him to this revival. This little nobody North Carolina Baptist preacher was leading it, led Billy Graham to Christ. You never know what's going to happen. You never going to know what's going to inside. Go ahead and open up that box. Something is different is inside. No. So when you open it, you'll find that the whole youth group has signed it. This is a special book that I've used for years. I've taken to, this is your copy, I have my own, but I've taken this to Brazil. I've taken this when I've preached at numerous churches. It gives examples, quotes. Remember, the thing that they remember most about your sermon is the funny things you say and the stories you give them. And the stories of your life and the way you've raised this church is great, but also then there's also stories in there, and all the kids have signed it. So so many people who have been raised in this church appreciate you. Thank you. Remember, you can keep the box. Yeah, you can read to them what it says on the side.
I would just like to thank them for, like, Pastor Stephen, like, with helping out, like, with VBS and for children's sermons and stuff. And I would, being a pastor, and I would like to thank Miss Debbie for helping with VBS and just helping with everything. And I would like to thank their kids for, like, helping us and being good people. So thank you.
Here.
I got it. Okay. Oh, good Lord. Okay. Stephen may have been a good pastor, whatever. I don't, we don't care. I don't have anything exactly planned, but I was telling Stephen earlier, I don't know what, there are so many stories that I don't, I have a couple favorites though. And one was, he and Debbie had just moved here, and we were moving you into your apartments. And my husband and I, there was a couple elders, and a lot of teenagers, and we'd unloaded their truck. And the guys had gone into the bedroom to remember this, put the bed together. And my husband, being a boy, looked at the wall, and there was this button he was not familiar with. So he pushed it, and it was a panic button for your home security system. So for the next 30 minutes, this panic button was going off. We had no idea how to turn it off. We made such a good impression. I'm like, I'm not with him. I don't know what he's doing. And I said, why did you push the button? He goes, I don't know. It was there. I wanted to see what it did. He goes, I've never seen a button like that in the bedroom. I thought it was like for the fan or something. And we were so embarrassed, and Debbie and Stephen were running around. I'm like, you made a really good impression on the young couple. They think we're idiots. The other was, okay, I'm going to talk about my son a little bit. He is not here. Y'all all know I'm not allowed to talk about him, so don't tell him. But when Lois and I came to the church, which was, what year did y'all come here? 2006, really? I guess we came at about 2003, 4. But when we came, both of my children rebelled. They didn't want to have anything to do with it because we'd been at a different church. And so they were actively boycotting youth group and wouldn't come and being really, like, ugly. We'd bring them to youth group. They wouldn't get out of the vehicle, and so, as parents, you feel so proud. We're like, our children, I'm sorry, they won't get out of the vehicle. We had to explain that so many times. But my son somehow bonded immediately with Stephen. And I have to tell you, It's the grace of God. We are so thankful for Stephen. I don't want to be too mushy to you, but you got to know that the only person my son is really bonded with for years is Stephen and Stephen Vargo. Stephen Vargo, if you're here, you're his best friend on the planet. And so, but the very first time Stephen took the kids to youth group, to middle school camp, my son has this thing he would do to us, his parents, when he was feeling real warm and squishy and bondy and all that stuff. So Stephen, it was nighttime, we were getting ready for bed. Stephen was in the restroom and came out, and my son just went and laid on top of him and rolled back and forth and back and forth. And Stephen at that time had a very clear boundaries issue. You weren't allowed to touch Stephen or hug him. And so he comes back and he's like, I have to tell you what happened. I didn't touch your son, but he did touch me. And so he's explaining the situation, and I said, oh, you were steamrolled. That means we call it steamrolling, and he would come in the bedroom and roll over us and steamroll us, and I go, it means he really likes you. So we were ever so grateful for that. And one other thing, he and I were just quickly remembering, of course I can't remember Batman without remembering you. I still see Batman things, and I think I'm going to buy that for Stephen. We bought him a number of kind of fun Batman things. I'm sure they're all at Goodwill, but we did. But he was just reminding me of he and David watching a movie together because they bonded over movies and comic books, and they were watching an old movie. What was it? Flash Gordon. And within 5 minutes, both of them were asleep on our couch. And my husband and I are like, what do we do? And we just left him. And Stephen woke up about 30 minutes later realizing that he was asleep, David was asleep, and he snuck out of the house and said, we'll see y'all later. So it was that kind of relationship. Thank you very much.
I want to ask you first.
So my boys were bravely wanting to come up here and talk to you, Pastor Stephen. So I don't know if you remember the first time we came to interview, but we sat out in the entryway there, and I was asked a question of who is my favorite superhero. Many of you were probably there for this answer. Does anybody remember what I said? Superman, right? I was not aware that there was a bat pastor in the house. I know better now. I have my boys here this morning supporting the Batman T-shirts because we now know who the most important DC superhero of Redeemer Church is and will always be, is Batman. Oh, okay. Grantham says otherwise. But Caleb wanted to say just a couple of words. Are you ready to say something? Okay.
Thank you, Pastor Stephen, for all that you've done for me. It's just been really great.
Okay, awesome. Did you want to say anything? Stop. But in all seriousness, when we moved here in August, our biggest concern was, how are our kids going to do? And you've loved them so well. I am grateful that my children want to come to church and they're excited to be taught by you. And it's so much so that we can use it as a encouragement or reinforcement tool and tell them you're not going to get to go to Sunday night with Pastor Stephen if you don't do what we've asked you to do. So thank you for improving discipline in our home and for loving our children so well. We love you guys.
So I will let you know, Josh, after you said Superman, I went up to Steve and said, we still should hire him, okay? Because I was there on that interview night. And we were like, oh. So anyway, I will let you guys know, I think you all know Brian and myself, Shauna. When we were buying our house down here 6 years ago, we were trying to pick it out near a PCA church. We saw that there were 3 in the area. and we saw they have a brand new big building and a new soccer program, everything. So, well, maybe that's it. So we were picking our house just 10 minutes from here, and then we pulled up, and it was a trailer with a mound of dirt. And I was like, oh, wow. Because we had been at Redeemer Tim Keller that had to take down and set up at Hunter College. We'd been at, New Life churches out of Philadelphia. We had just been setting up old churches in buildings for years. And I thought, wow, I don't know if I can do this again. We just moved to like the South. I'm a Yankee, and I can't believe this. So we come in, Craig's not there. He's on vacation, but Larry, we knew the pastor, so we're like, okay. But Stephen's super nice to us, right? And he's like, come back for youth group tomorrow morning. At that time, you were meeting on like Monday night's youth group. And I was like, okay, we can do this. We can do a trailer. And if you guys know me, okay, I'm a snob. So I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway, we get here, and I go sit out and wait for the kids, and I hear them screaming and yelling, and they're having so much fun, and going, no, no. They had, if you know Stephen, that's a normal sound, oh, right? Birdie bots of beans, Harry Potter, earwax, vomit beans, jelly beans. But the pastor pulled out 2 truths and a lie. They're like, this is the best church. Don't visit any others, Mom. We've got it sealed. We love Pastor Stephen. And I said, well, we're going to go visit the other 2 PCA just in case, okay? Because they don't meet in a trailer. And we hadn't met that guy yet, so I was like, and I don't even know who the head pastor is. But anyway, Stephen sealed the deal with the 3 boys were in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We moved here. So as you know, Nina, middle school is a hard time, right? And I had 3 middle schoolers, and he was just like super, great pastor. But my kids have grown up with a seminary dad, so you've got to be totally solid. And then fun, if fun is good, that's great. And they got both, because my kids are very much, they're tough on teachers. So Stephen, thank you. And then one last thing, because and you guys know I talk long, so I'm not going to. You might see in the slideshow, but Debbie and I have been able to do, I teach exercise classes, and she's been coming with me for years, right, to all my different stuff. And when she wants something I've tried to fulfill, sometimes a request, she goes, we do a bar class this ballet. I really would like if you do an 80s bar class. So I got into vintage 1980s spandex for Debbie with leg warmers. And I taught a class, and there's a picture in that slideshow, maybe. But I love Debbie, so I was like, hey, I'll spend time doing this. And I danced like a maniac, and the song, and in 80s, in front of my boss at work, because I wanted Debbie to have a good class. So anyway, I'm going to miss you guys a lot, but it's not too far, thankfully, with social media, cell phones, and texting. It's really, and the kids online. But I could tell a lot of stories. I just wanted you guys to know that our journey here started with Stephen in youth group, and a very memorable day. And then, of course, Debbie and I have been together all the time during the week, so it's been a real treat. Okay.
All right, so there have been many references already today to Batman and Stephen's affinity for Batman. Stephen actually thinks he is Batman. And it's obvious why, right? When I looked up Wikipedia's characteristics of Batman, and here's the list. He has genius-level intellect. He is in peak human physical condition. He is skilled in martial arts and hand-to-hand combat. He's a billionaire technologist. He's a master of disguise and espionage. Okay. We're laughing because we know that Pastor Stephen loves Batman, but I actually think Pastor Stephen is like Batman. Here's 5 ways that Pastor Stephen is like Batman. Batman doesn't have superpowers, right? Batman uses the tools that are around him, that God has provided him through his money and his intellect with, in order to accomplish his task. And Stephen is like that too. Stephen doesn't have superpowers. Sorry, Stephen. But he uses the tools that God has put around him in order to accomplish his calling. Batman is, on the one hand, he's kind of a loner, but on the other hand, he works in a team. He's part of the Justice League. And Stephen is very much like that. It's a pleasure to work with somebody who's so collaborative when it comes to ministry. And Stephen is not the kind of person who's just trying to go out there and do everything on his own. He's always interested in bringing other people in and getting their opinion and seeing how they can fit in. Batman doesn't take all the credit. Batman regularly, he credits people like Robin or Commissioner Gordon or even Alfred, his butler. And Stephen is very humble. He doesn't take all the credit either. He works and works and then gives credit to the people who are around him. Batman, a huge part of Batman's his super abilities or his abilities are because of the armor that he wears, right? He's got this amazing suit. And Stephen has armor too. It's the armor of God. And he teaches about that to our kids. He teaches about that. He talks about it in our ministry context. And finally, Batman's life, his whole life is about helping people. And I think Stephen's is too. Stephen loves God. Stephen loves God. Stephen loves people. He's a great pastor. We're going to miss him. Love you, brother.
I'm Frances, hiker Frances. Debbie, she's been a willing volunteer today. Now, seriously, we've had lots of opportunities to share experiences together. And Debbie has been, she's willing to step out in faith, do things that she doesn't feel comfortable doing. And so we have a few little things for her. We're going to sing a song, but if you know Debbie, she loves sports, she loves teams, so we can't do this song without a team. And Debbie's been a part of almost every team at Redeemer. So we have the VBS team. Where's the VBS team? Come on down, VBS team. Move it, Aria. Debbie would be running. And we, of course, we have to have the Georgia Bulldog team. And the Lightning team. Uh-oh, where's my other team? The women's team. Show us all your books. But last but not least, we need the crying team. Who do you think that might be?
Debbie.
Give it up for the crying team, because we maybe need to borrow her Kleenexes. Oh, yeah, and there they are, the Boyette sports team. So I think you have either been in charge or been willing to do the worst job, the hottest job out in the sun. But these are just some of the things that Debbie has done during her days here at Redeemer. And we have a special song. Oh, this is what it was. Debbie has one talent that she really has not been able to do at Redeemer. Only a few of us have been able to experience this talent. But I really wanted her to have the opportunity to come up here on stage and perform. So I'm going to hand her the mic. I'm going to give her a few props. Will you put that on, please? And if you're a little nervous, I have a prop that you can hold on to. So Debbie, would you, this board's not long enough. You know what it is. So Debbie, I would like to give us your infamous bird call. She developed this at Camp Kalakwa and would run around camp giving us the bird call. So do you want me to do it with you, or do you want to do it alone? Ready? It's caw, remember?
All right. First of all, before I start this, I was trying to get some of the youth at this church excited about camp. All right, ready?
1, 2.
Caw-caw!
Oh, that's really low. Come on. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That's it. So, who in here is a fan of Sound of Music? You're going to the mountains, and you know that bird call is going to come in handy in the mountains. Will's going to put the words up to climb every mountain, but we're doing it. We are going to do it Redeemer style. So, the caw part is going to be for Debbie and any of the children that would like to participate. But we want everyone to sing along with us because we are not professional singers. And I think we need a... Wait a minute. Oh, we have to have a nun, of course.
Okay, you were ready,
Will? Will's going to give us a note, we hope. Or just start it for us.
Every mountain.
Search high and low. Follow after Stephen, as the God has shown.
Climb every mountain.
Toward every stream, follow the Lord Jesus till you fall. You don't have to sing your dream. A team that will need all the love you can give. Sing. Every day of your life. Climb every mountain. Ford every stream. Follow after Stephen. We'll always be your team. We're not. One more verse. Ready, everybody? Climb every mountain. Ford every stream. Follow the Lord Jesus. We'll always be your team. We'll always be your team. And you can't go down yet.
No, I can't go down.
All right, y'all can go down, but we have a special person. Olivia Hokrine would have been involved with this, but she is up taking spring semester, or whatever it's called at Covenant, May term. So she was willing to do a video for us. So we're going to have Olivia have a few words for Debbie.
Hey Debbie. So Francis called me and asked me to make a video for you since I can't be there tonight and just talk about one of our special memories that I have with you. And I thought back to our slumber parties at your house with the middle school girls, and I thought, I know what I have to do. And so I just want to say that I love you and I appreciate you, and I'm going to miss you guys. I wish you all the best, and you guys are very loved. Thank you for all that you do.
Well, this is all about Debbie. Well, this one is too. And I have a disclaimer. Anything I say will be an exaggeration or maybe some untruth. No, there's a lot of truth to it. So it was about 12 years ago that you guys showed up and in the shaky box over there. And it was one evening, Craig will know, that Stephen was kind of telling us about himself. And it came to a point in time where we could ask questions to Stephen. So I asked a question. I said, Stephen, do you like sports and can you play soccer? He immediately responded, no. But my wife, and before he can get the words out after wife, he never finished the sentence, this blonde girl jumped out of her seat about 2 rows in front of Elaine and I and said, I know soccer, I can coach, I'm all in, sign me up. I said, well, that was the start of a journey that Debbie and I have experienced as leaders of Boy at Sports. So we had the first coaches meeting, and so I knew they were going to come, and Debbie was going to coach, and Stephen was going to help. I asked Debbie if Stephen could do anything, and she said, not really, but I'll keep him on my team, just to keep it safe. So the coaches meeting was early. It was like 8 o'clock when we had the coaches meeting back then. And so Stephen walks into the coaches meeting, and he's kind of dressed like he is today. He's got pants on. He's got a dress shirt. He does have sneakers on, though. He does have the sneakers on. And then right behind him comes Debbie. Now, Debbie's decked out as a soccer player. She's all in. You can tell she's a soccer player. But it looked like she just got out of bed. And week after week, this happened. So I asked Stephen, why does Debbie look like she got out of bed? Because she did. She's not a morning person. And I said, well, so if we have to cancel soccer, do I call you guys at 7 o'clock? No, don't call her at 7. She'll be asleep. Okay, I won't call her at 7. Except we kind of talked about doing that one day just to tease her. So anyway, Debbie continued on, and we were having a little problem with the coaches not coming to the coaches meeting. They would end up coming to the field, when the kids showed up. And I talked to Debbie, and I said, what can we do? And she said, if you feed them, they will come. Ah, that's a great idea. So I said, coaches, we're going to have food next time, and whatever you guys want, I'll bring it, And so they gave some suggestions, and I brought some food. And then shortly thereafter, Debbie came to me and says, I can really use my sweet tea in the morning. Okay. Now, fortunately for Debbie, I would stop and get my unsweet tea every Saturday morning before I came. And, of course, it had to be from McDonald's, not Panera's, not any place else. It had to be McDonald's. Really, Braylon, really. Anyway, so I would go and get her tea. I said, well, Debbie, why can't Stephen get you your sweet tea in the morning? Oh, he's too busy. Craig's got him doing all these different things, and he can't do it. I said, okay, that's fine. So I would bring the sweet tea every Saturday morning for Debbie, and I'd have my unsweet tea. And if you ever want to see someone with a cringy, ugly face, give Debbie unsweetened iced tea. And I swear, I think every season, one of the teas would get mixed up. And Debbie would take her sip in the morning, and she would just, ugh. And I would say, it's all Stephen's fault. It's all Stephen's fault. So Debbie continued on. She really took on the role with me. We were, really both, we never had titles. We just called each other, whoever's in charge that day was Debbie or I. And but she had some names for me. The first one was, hey. And if she said hey to me, it meant, she just wanted to have a conversation about something was going on, and she just wanted to talk. So she'd go, hey. Okay. The second word she used for me was boss man. boss man, I need to talk to you. We have a problem over here, and we got to get it resolved. Well, she always gave me the answer. She always gave me what we should do. I said, okay, that's good. Well, go ahead. Oh, no, you're the boss man. So if they don't like the decision, they'll blame the boss man, not me. So I was also the boss man. The third thing she would call me was Dwayne. Now, when she said Dwayne, I knew something was up. And she said it 3 times, and it's all Stephen's fault. She said one time, Dwayne, and she said this 3 times exactly the same way. I have something to tell you. I go, uh-oh. He says, I can't do Boy at Sports this season. I go, okay. I said, is this Stephen's fault? She goes, yeah, I'm pregnant with Grayson. Okay. So I had a little talk with Stephen because he was ruining my whole coaching staff here, So the second time she came to me, she goes, Dwayne, I have something to tell you. And I'm thinking, this is Stephen's fault. This is Stephen's fault. She's not going to be here for another season of Boy at Sports. What am I going to do? So she goes, well, I'm going to have another baby, and Braylon was going to be. All right, Braylon. So then, of course, the last time was several weeks ago when she came up and said the exact same words. Dwayne, I have something to tell you. And I said, what is it? It's got to be Stephen's fault. Well, it was. Moving her to North Carolina. I said, what's they thinking? He can't do that to me. So, needless to say, she had those conversations that we've had together, and she's been a marvelous person to work with throughout the many years now with Boy at Sports. And I knew there was another story, but I can't remember it, but that's okay. But I do want to say to Stephen, he also helped my brother. I don't know if you know him. Sorry. My brother Don, I know he was in your Saturday morning group. And he was very instrumental in my brother's spiritual really growth. And I just admire you for that. And I appreciate that. I can't say anything to Debbie here, I'll lose it. But anyway. Anyway, Debbie, it's been an honor and a real joy. And enjoy it's actually an alarm clock, so you wake up in the morning. But I want to thank you for all that you've done for Boy at Sports and co-leading with me in this ministry of sharing the gospel. Thanks.
Oh, sure. I know some of you are going to have to start making your way out. We did move the signature book out to the lobby, so on your way out, if you just want to sign that.
And just real quick, Stephen, again, to both you and Debbie, I'm going to speak now as a dad and a father. There's been, we look at the youth that you've got right now, but when you see the group of people that are up on the stage and so many of the other lives you guys have touched, I come not only as someone who's enjoyed your preaching, but as a dad who's had each one of my kids come up to me and say, boy, Wednesday night, and we learned so much from Stephen, or at this camp, we were so blessed by this message. So in so many ways, so many of the seeds that you guys have planted, it wasn't, for those of you who aren't aware, it was so difficult for them when they came because this church, back at the time when Stephen and Debbie came, had a youth pastor that was leaving. And he was dearly loved by all the kids and everybody. But because it was so abrupt, they had 2 tough tasks. One was to take over, but 2, when you're taking over someone who's dearly loved, there is sort of a hard role with the kids because the kids feel like they're kind of being abandoned. They're like, we had this guy, it was such an abrupt time. And when they came in, and Stephen's ministry encompassed one-on-one times when he would be with them. And so there was a lot of times when my boys would be, hey, I'm going out with Stephen, and I was just getting to know him, and Katie would go out. And it was a time when they would come back and they would say, we're going to be all right. We're going to miss Keith. It was really great. But the one thing we're seeing, we're not sure all what the youth leaders are going to look like with the new youth program. But it's one thing we cannot doubt is that we're going to be loved. And Stephen, I don't think it's really, we can tell how many lives you have touched outside this. Well, wait a second. Mike, is that the old Paul? There's someone else who went from Florida to the Carolinas. And someone that you guys really respect is the old BC. I mean, for him and stuff like that. Steve.
As soon as I see Stephen, I'm gonna tell him you look like you joined Duck Dynasty.
Oh, be nice to him. He's not Phil Fulmer for crying out loud.
But he's Stephen. He was a wonderful guy when he's.
That's better. That's a little bit better. But he's done a lot for you. Many people don't know Stephen's actually been counseling the family. He's done a lot of good things for the Spurriers, for their coaching staff, for the folks. He's done a lot of good things. What would you have to say about the good things that maybe
He did a lot of good things for us, and I look forward to seeing Stephen again. And I'm sort of glad he grew his hair out. I am. That's him.
It's not like he's bald for crying out loud, but I see a lot of North Carolina pastors up there and stuff like that. Is it okay with you having a Georgia fan come up? Does he have a chance to make it?
That's fine. He's got a chance. Maybe he's got a chance to be a good one. Heck, you guys made it, so he's got a chance also.
Just. Okay, so disclaimer, parents, sorry to say this. You're going to have to explain this probably to your kids in the car on the way home. But, so I met Debbie and Steve, and it was at Boyd Sports, all right, early on. And they were great from the get-go. And they had that wonderful Georgia accent we just loved, So we were just sitting there saying, well, I wonder what they're made of, So one day when Deb was at the Boyd Sports early on, and you had to take a look at that van. Everybody remember her van she used to have? She would drive. It looked like she drove up the mountaintop with all the dirt and grime all over the thing. You remember that? Never washed. So we decided at one time play a little joke on Deb, and all we did, all we did was in the caked dirt back window we put, "Wish my wife was this dirty." That's all we did. That's the part you have to explain to your kids on the way home. But anyway, sorry about that. And so, Deb drove off. And me and a couple of the guys who were my cronies and helped me do that, Lord behold, about 20 minutes later, Deb comes on 2 wheels, turning that van back to where we were at the church. And she gets out of that van, and she's looking at us. She's looking at us. She comes straight to me, and she goes, "Did you do that?" Did what? What'd I do? She said, "People honked at my van all the way down the road, and people looked at me from church, and were looking at me like shaking their heads like this, So that was Deb getting to know us real well then. And then I got to tell you, these two people are the funnest people. I hope each and every one of you had a chance to actually enjoy them here in church, but especially outside of church. That's when the true hearts. There's nothing funner than Steve and Debbie at a Lightning hockey game after a beer and a glass of wine. Third period, Lightning down by 1. I tell you what, what's more exciting? Watching Deb scream like a lunatic, right? To the point where, she makes us all blush. And including the Lightning players, some of them stopped and looked in the stands and they blushed, But those were a lot of fun, right? But I do want to say something to you all. Endeared yourselves to me that one day when my mom passed away. And we have a special bond there. And the story is that my mom was in hospice and she was, progressing toward being with the Lord. And man, late in one afternoon, it was unplanned. Steve and Debbie came walking in, and I was like, "Hey guys, what are y'all doing?" And Steve looked at me and says, "I don't know. I just felt the need to come and be here." And so his intuition really is strong with the Lord, and I wanted to let you know that. Because when they got there, we shared stories, we chatted, we laughed for about 15 minutes, and then my mom's hand got cold. And so I told him, I said, I knew I was here. I looked at Steve and I said, I knew why I was here, maybe to see that. And I looked at Steve and I said, why were you here? And he looked at me and what'd you say? Maybe I need to see it too. That's an honest answer by a pastor. It's a tough job. But you know what? You were called to do it, and you're going to do a wonderful job up north. And your door's always open here. And if you ever need to go see a Lightning game, you come on back down, all right? Thank you.
All right, we have another performance for you guys by our fearless leader, Pastor Craig and company. So, gentlemen, take it away.
It's not that funny. There's a sad sort of grieving in this church and its halls and the streets of Riverview. So up on this platform for absurd grieving men are popping out to say boo-hoo, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Regretfully you're leaving, so all of us are grieving because it's time to say goodbye to Hansens, 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 Hansens.
We'll miss the time you put in VBS, the skits, the laughs, it really was the best.
Winthorpe School will miss Debbie and PE. The stress in life made her drink iced tea.
Bible study helped our faith to blossom. In Stephen language, discussions were quite awesome.
So long, farewell, we'll miss you and your family. It's time to say, I am Batman.
Our children's ministry will never be the same. With the biggest kid leaving, now who will we blame? When you preached, we'd all take careful note of each and every single movie quote.
To grant them grace and even Braylon too, remember this, let's go Duke. The time has come for us to say goodbye. We'll cry, we'll pine, and sigh and say goodbye. Hold on. Hansen family, we will miss you. Hansen family, we will miss you. Hansen family, we will miss you. Of that you will be sure. Sing it. Hansen family, we will miss you. Hansen family, we will miss you. Hansen family, we will miss you. Of that you can be sure. Yay!
Not sure how you follow that one up. I know we've got a few more people that wanted to share, so we're going to have about 5-10 more minutes of sharing, and then we'll have an opportunity to pray over the family. So ladies, are you coming up? Okay.
Oh, Braylon, my favorite moment with you was playing Barbies, and you wouldn't let me use my mommy voice. She said, what's with this voice? But Stephen, 2 Christmases ago, I was late in giving you your Christmas gift. So I swung by the church and thought, well, I'll just swing in here and give him his gift. Well, I had back issues with my disc, and my daughter told me to go to an acupuncture. You know, we like alternative medicine, even though we're in medicine. So I went to her wonderful acupuncturist, and she put needles between my eyes and all these needles, and I ended up with 2 black eyes. I don't know who remembers that. So I'm dropping the gift off to Stephen, and I go into his office, and he was about ready to leave for lunch, and I sat down on the chair, and I gave him his Christmas gift, and I said, Stephen, Bill and I need counseling. And his face just went as pale, the compassion in his eyes, and his arms crossed. I said, we had a horrible fight. And it was really bad. And I hear Nanny in the hallway. She said, Bill Williams would never do that. And Stephen's still very poised and looking like, oh my God, how am I going to handle this one? You know? And Nanny comes in, she said, I know Bill would never do that. If anything, you hit him. And I said, Nanny, you do not know what goes on behind closed doors. Now get out of the office. I need to talk to Stephen. And then I lost it laughing. And he finally, he just was like, oh my gosh. But the compassion on your face was real, in spite of my trick. And we really appreciate your love for us, in spite of us. You're a great family. We're going to miss you. But we'll come haunt you in the mountains, don't worry.
So we haven't been here, well, gosh, it's been 3 years now. That's a really long time. But we have loved you guys. You have loved on our children like nobody else. When things have happened and we've picked up the phone, we've been met with compassion. We've been met with advice. We've been met with what we needed. Encouragement to do the right thing. Rides when our cars, both of them, were in the shop at the same time. And you guys will be desperately missed. But one thing I have to tell you, I used to live in upstate South Carolina, so I had reason to go driving where they're going to be moving. And you are actually moving to Bat Cave. There is an exit off of 77 as you're heading north that is Bat Cave, North Carolina. Now we know the rest of the story.